Hi everybody, I hope you're all well. I am having a complete chill day today. Thus, I am in my Oodie and I just look like I just rolled out of bed, which I suppose technically you could argue I have just done. But yeah, I'm having a day where I'm just like, I have no plans, I have nothing to do, so I am just gonna I don't give a crap kind of a day. I have been, before I start this review, just FYI, I have fallen completely down a rabbit hole yesterday by watching The Traitors, the UK version, which is a game show that started showing here in the UK a few weeks ago, and they show 3 episodes a week. This is the final week. Just so you're aware, and it's just because I've been busy, I haven't been able to watch it. I thought, oh, I'll watch an episode, see what I think. I ended up binging all 9 episodes yesterday. I am obsessed. I love this show, and it's based on there's the original show, I think, was a Dutch one, and there's been an Australian version, and now there's a UK version. I don't know about any others, so but yeah, check it out. It's absolutely brilliant. I love it. So yeah, yesterday I spent quite a bit of time watching that, but that didn't stop me getting through by Grand Central Station. I Sat Down and Wept by Elizabeth Smart, which is what I am here to review. So I'm going to start off this review by saying I don't understand why this short story is considered a classic. Putting it out there. Straight off the mark. You can guess what the tone of this review is going to be, can't you? Just from that statement. So this is a fictionalized account of a love affair that Elizabeth Smart had, which was a massive part of her life, which I will talk more about in a minute. And she wrote this book and had it published, and as time has gone on, it's been considered like this great masterpiece in the short story novella section of literature. And so when I said earlier on this year that I'd love to read more short stories, and so I got the yellow wallpaper and such, and this came up, and I was like, you know what, it's one that I know there's been considered a classic of the short story side of fiction. It's right there, let's give it a go. And I didn't look into it. I just went on a hunch. So you could, say it's completely my fault for not having actually flicked through it and having get to know kind of more of the story and everything before I started reading this book for me to feel like this. But yeah, I have to say, I think this is the worst book that I have read this year. Or it's very high up in my ranking. I will need to do my proper ranking of the year when it comes to my review of the year. But yeah, I think it's one of the worst. Because the problem with this book is that she has written it in this very poetic nature, where I'm like, what the hell are you actually trying to say to me? It feels like she is trying so hard to prove how masterful she is at writing that it's like, what is going on? What are you actually trying to say to me? So I'm going to give you an example. I forgot to mark it, but I'm sure I will find it very quickly. Yeah, here we go. So she's in a cafe with this guy, right? And she says, how can she walk through the streets so vulnerable, so unknowing, and not have people and dogs and perpetual calamity follow her? But overhung with her vines of faith, she is protected from the gaze like the pools of the Epping forest. I see she can walk across the leering world and suffer injury only for the one she loves, but I love her, and her silence is propaganda for sainthood. Okay, that, I'm like, okay, she's saying about to do with her vulnerability and everything, and is her faith in this man and everything, Is it going to work out? Okay, fine. But then she says some very, very strange things. And I'm just so confused. I'm trying to find the exact page. I'm so stupid that I didn't mark it. I think it might actually be in part 2. Okay. So, yes. So then she says some weird things like this. Who could proof against the future ghosts in the geraniums, holding pity for the time bomb in the looks of agony? What forgetfulness can nature devise, or what gangsters of justification can you, God, engage to quiet this compassion, which is the thief of my strength and to endure? Like there's some weird things. Not God, but bats and a spider who is weaving my guilt keep the rendezvous with me, and shame copulates with every September housefly. My room echoes with the scream she never utters, and under my floor the vines of remorse get ready to push up through the damp. The cricket drips remembrance unceasingly into my ear, lest I mislay any items of cruelty's fiendish inventory. The trap is sprung, and I am in the trap, but is not to be eased from the pain which I crave, which I pray God to understand my corrupt language and step down for a moment to sit on my broken bench. Will there be a birth from all this blood, of the death only exactly his greedy price? Is this an infant struggling in the triangular womb? I am blind, but blood, not love, blinded my eyes. Love lifted the weapon and guilted my crime, locked my limbs, when, like a drowning man with the last lifeboard in sight, her anguish rose out the sea and cry help, and now over the piercing face superimposes the cloudy mask of desire. And yes, all of that is one sentence. Like, what are you trying to say to me? Like, I am so confused. I just, what? I just sat through this and just felt like, honey, from the start off, it is very clear for me, from the moment this book begins, that this guy is not that into you. So as I was reading this book and going, what the hell is she actually talking about? What is this story? What is happening? Because literally all you've done is sit down in a cafe with him. What are you trying? There's no conversation. What are you trying to say to me? I did some research on Elizabeth Smart, and Elizabeth Smart basically met this guy. Well, she found one day, because she loved poetry, she was looking at poetry in a bookshop and came across this volume of poetry relating to Greek history, like Trojan's War and stuff like this, by this man, George. Oh, his surname's fallen out of my head. But anyway, George is married. And living in Japan. She writes to George and pays to have him and his wife come to America, because she's in America, New York, to come see her and talk about it. Just randomly, like, she gets obsessed with this poetry. So she contacts him and pays for him and his wife to come to New York to see her. She falls madly in love with him and they have a love affair, okay? Right? But he makes it very, very clear that he is a man of God. He, he's very religious and everything. And he says, look, I'm married. I can't leave my wife for you because it's my beliefs and everything. But he still cheated on his wife. And he has 4 children with Elizabeth Smart. Does he ever leave his wife? Does anything progress further? No. And it turns out that he has done this with several other women and has fathered 15 children. And yet she is still absolutely, like, falling in love, obsessed with him. And I'm like, you can see it from page 1 of this book, which is a fictionalized account of their relationship. He is just not that into her. And I will say it over and over again. And I'm like, honey, this is not going to work out. But it's like she just is completely blinded by everything. It's just so bizarre. And like, she's obsessed with birds and other animals, and she talks about menageries and the depths of pools and stuff like this, and I'm like, what are you actually saying? Because it's driving me mad. It's driving me mad. Like, I am jealous of the hawk because he can get so far away from the world, and I follow with passionate envy the seagull swooping to possible cessation. The mourning doves mercilessly coo my sentence in the woods. They are the hangman pronouncing my sentence in a subtle language of love. I climb above the possessive clouds that squat over the sea, but the poison spreads. Naked I wait. What? I cannot get my head around this. Now, it's not a lack of understanding poetry and such. I love poetry. It's just like, it feels like she's trying too hard. She's constantly, with every sentence, trying to prove herself better and better and better. And oh no. As a fictional prose piece, for me, no. I need characterization. I need to know who the fuck I'm talking about. And I hate the fact that she constantly has this thing where she says, I am walking, I am doing this, but then the next paragraph, it's her looking at herself. So it then goes, she is walking, she is doing this and that. And that's, the bit where I quoted before, where it referred to she, and she constantly, it's flipping constantly, and it's like, right, whose perspective do you want me to be in? Just have it in a perspective, leave it there for a while. Don't keep jumping back and forth. And like, they don't even like talk to each other. It's like, okay, now we're driving. Okay, now we're in a cafe. Okay, now we're having this conversation. Oh, they say we're having this conversation, but no conversation is actually quoted. It is just this hodgepodge of poetic-esque kind of writing that just has no sense whatsoever. And it is draining. It is draining to read. And this is like, it's 134 pages, and it felt like I was reading through 1,000. There was no, it's like she's trying to show, oh yes, I have depth. I'm going to show you how much depth I have. But it doesn't have any depth. There's no understanding of character. There's nothing of weight, of magnitude to it. The most weight that you have is the title. That is a brilliant title, but that's it. And I'm like, why is this considered a classic? What? Why? It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It could just be that this is a book that just, for me, just doesn't work, or it is a classic. I'm in a headspace where I just can't see it, but it feels like she is trying too hard. She is trying to prove herself, but in proving herself, she is, for me, showing her flaws so clearly. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It doesn't actually have a plot. It's a short story about a love affair with no plot, and the title is the best bit of it. And that's all I can say about that. I'm sorry to sound so mean or whatever, but it's just, I can't understand why this is recognized as such a great short story when it's not, or at least to me it's not. So I can't say any more than that, other than, those are my thoughts on background centralization. I sat down and wept. So my usual questions: would I read this again? God, no. No way in hell am I reading this again. Would I recommend this to anyone? No. Unless you were interested in Elizabeth Smart and poetry and such. I suppose maybe I'd say, look, this is a short story written more like poetic prose, even though I don't like it, you might do. So I might recommend for that, but that one circumstance only. Would I read anything else by Elizabeth Smart? Hell no. No, it's a no. no. I just, yeah, I see what she was trying to do, but she's trying too hard for a man who's just not that into her. And yeah, and she ended up having 4 children to this man who was a serial cheater who had 15 illegitimate children. And yeah, there we go. So those are my thoughts on by Grand Central Station. I sat down and wept. I hope my next book review will be much, much better than that. But I can't deal with that book. I'm sorry. I have to just, throw it down the end of the sofa. If you read this, I'd love to know what you think. Leave a comment in the comments box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely to you decide. And I will be back with my next video, which is announcing my next 5 reads. So yeah. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Bye.